Hey, Siam here. So this is a video for Matthew Gathercole. So this is one of our YouTube subscribers. He put a video in one of the other videos asking about my biggest successes, mistakes in business, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully Matty can find that comment and put it up there. But yeah, it's for you. So off the top of my head, Matthew's question, I believe, was something like, what was my first successful business and my biggest errors, learning points, etc. So this is something I could actually talk about for weeks. I'll try and keep this short. Basically, the first successful business I had was actually one of my worst businesses at the same time, which is quite interesting. So my first 3 businesses pretty much flopped because I went into business. I heard that stat that 9 out of 10 businesses don't pass year 1 or year 5 or blah, 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 blah. And I thought, well, okay, I know nothing about business. I'm just going to set up 10 businesses and one of them is going to hit. So sort of spray and pray attitude. And yeah, my first 3 pretty much flopped. And the thing is, when you are starting out in business, I wouldn't go the full hog and set up, because what everyone does is they spend like 10 grand on a silly website they don't need. They hire crap loads of staff they don't need to begin with. They basically buy everything they don't need, when the most important thing you need is basically proof of concept and getting some freaking sales. So a laptop, a phone, knocking on doors, cold calling, or not necessarily cold calling, but basically getting out there and seeing if your product or service actually works. So when I say the first 3 businesses flopped, it was a case of they didn't really get traction, so I didn't lose out on too much. However, my first proper business that took off and then subsequently sort of bombed out to a degree was actually my bullion business. So I had 2 bullion businesses. This was weird. So I have been buying gold and silver for a long time, and what happened was I basically wanted physical silver for myself but cheaper, and I was like, how the hell can I get cheaper bullion for myself? And then I bumped into a guy called Daniel Marburger, who's basically the director of Europe's biggest wholesaler. I think I was talking at an event or something, and we got chatting, and I was like, oh, how much is it to get wholesale prices? And basically it turned out I needed, I think I needed about 100 grand's worth of sales, of silver orders to get some really good bulk discounts. So this is actually, we're at Blowfield Golf Course. Yeah, there is a course here. It's owned by some of my mates, Jack and Grant Pointer, really top guys, and yeah, they've just had a new coffee shop, and I thought I'd come here in camouflage. Do like this. Can you still see me? But yeah, let's get back to what we were talking about. What were we talking about? Yeah, so I needed loads of bulk orders, and so I put out a Facebook status saying, hey everyone, I'm buying a whole bunch of bullion. Who wants in to pool the orders? And my first order was over 100 grand, and I kept doing that month after month, and then by month 3, and I was consistently getting these 100 grand orders, I was like, okay, I need to turn this into a business. And that's how my bullion business sort of started up, by accident, really. I never wanted to be a bullion dealer. I just wanted cheaper stuff for my own personal dealings, and so that really took off. So in the first year we turned over 1.4 million quid. The margins were really low, and then the year after that, it was another, I think it was about 2 million quid turnover. Now, and the thing was, it was great, but here is the problem I made. This is probably the biggest mistake I made in the early years, and it's basically not knowing my business numbers. Now you're going to sit here after I tell you this and go, oh my God, you're such an idiot, Simon. But the thing is, I'd never been in business. I mean, I was an RAF pilot up until then. All I knew was how to fly planes. And I basically got my gross profit margin and my net profit margin completely mixed up. So there I was making about 2 million turnover a year, thinking that my gross profit margin was 10%. Sorry, my net profit margin was 10%. And so I thought, oh yeah, this business is doing all right actually. And yeah, I was so wrong. So there I was thinking I was making about 200 grand a year profit, but I wasn't. I was making less than 1% net profit. So there was me thinking I was Billy Big Balls, like, oh yeah, look at all this coming in. And I remember one day, my accountant said, oh, your VAT bill is due in a few days. I was like, okay, yeah, how much is it? And he said it was about 40 to 43 grand VAT bill. And I was like, okay. Looked at my account, I was like, oh shit. And there was about 20 grand in the account. And I was like, yeah, I had to basically find 20K in about 5 days. And so this is where the first error I made. Well, no, the second error. So the first error was not knowing my business math and basically not knowing the difference between my gross profit margin and my net profit margin. Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, please. Sorry. No, it's all right. Thank you. And yeah, and so because my net profit margin was like 1%, the business was barely making any money. And so what I had to quickly do to cover the VAT bill was just sell. And all I was doing is I was using sales from like now to pay off the previous quarter's VAT return. And basically it just pushed me back 3 months, but every 3 months. And it took me 18 months to catch up. And because the profit margin was so low, it took me 18 months of always chasing that future, or the past VAT. And it was a very horrible position to be in. And one of the things which helped me was that I created the UK's first ever savings plan. So you can set up a direct debit for like 300 quid a month and get a corresponding amount of gold or silver. And that is what actually clawed the business out of crap, really. And it actually enabled me to sell that business, because if you have a recurring revenue stream, you don't start every month at 0 sales. You start off the month at, I don't know, however much direct debits you've got coming in. That was the only way I managed to sell the Bullion business in the end to a lovely lady called Sarah, who still runs the business. Sarah Nagashine from bullioncircle.co.uk. She's a lovely lady. Yeah, another thing was that taking the cheap option has screwed me over nearly every single time. This has nothing to do with the Bullion business now, but this is, I remember there's once I had like a legal issue, okay? Someone had done me wrong, and I wanted to I got legal advice, and I remember I had 2 options. I either went with this law firm which was quoting like a ridiculous price, or what I thought at the time was like 15 grand to fix this, and then there was this other, I don't think he was even a solicitor, I think he was an ex-solicitor who's, I don't know, anyway, it cost me 5 grand. So I was like, okay, I went for the 5 grand option. And guess what? Yeah, I should have gone for the expensive option. I guess, yeah, so that was just one, I ended up spending more to try and to fix a problem that this debt collection type company screwed up on, really. Yeah, so, and again, there's another time, which this is a little bit sensitive at the moment because it's still going on, but I chose the cheap option, basically. Yeah, and it hurt. So I think you have to ignore the price sometimes, and you, like with trading and investing, you need to look at the downside. And again, when it comes to sort of legal type stuff, if you, yeah, the downside of getting poor legal advice is you're going to end up spending way more down the line. So, so yeah, and I know this, I'm going all over the place, but there's one really key thing here that I really want to convey, is that sometimes taking the boring option or the boring path or route is actually sometimes the best option you can take. So for example, one of my businesses is a financial education business. That was close. And a couple of years ago, we've got a really strong residual income base. So we have lots of subscribers paying varying amounts of money on direct debit. And a few opportunities came up. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm a bit like a magpie, and I'm, ooh, shiny object. And I end up like spinning way too many plates if I'm not careful, so I have to be really, really strict to myself. Anyway, so I remember about 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I could start doing all of this, which would basically take time and attention away from my core business. And basically I took the shiny objects, and yeah, I learned lots, and it made money for me. But I looked back at my old folder, and I was like, if I just ignored all of the fancy stuff and stuck to the boring path, I would have been making way more money now than I actually ended up doing. And the main reason being is that at the time with that business, my residual income was going up at about £1,500 a month. And I worked out that, like, you know, if I just kept on doing the boring stuff and kept doing what I was doing, and kept increasing the income stream, the residuals by 1,500 quid a month, in 2 years' time, or like where we are now, our residual income stream would have been really, really healthy. It would have been something like 150% of our monthly income. So I think I think basically our residual income would have been about 50k a month profit, which would have been quite nice. So, however, it's half that. So our residuals, no, a bit less than that. With that particular business, we're only sat at about 25 grand a month net in profit from the residual income stream. So, yeah, so I've sort of kneecapped ourselves by diverting away. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah, I guess if we were to summarize it, taking the cheap option isn't always a good thing. Taking the boring option is sometimes actually the thing that you should do. Yeah, business maths is everything. It really is. If you're in business, I don't care what business you have, a knitting business, a monkey export business, whatever, you need to know your numbers. You need to know the absolute basics, like your turnover, your net profit margins, your gross profit margins, your customer churn per month, per year, your general outgoings. I mean, at the very least, what's coming in, what's going out, what's left, your tax liability, your VAT liability, your corporation tax liability, your cost per acquisition, like, as in how much it costs you to get a customer, and what's the average lifespan of a customer. So all of these numbers, you need to sit down and basically get some paper out and just really crunch those numbers out. So yeah, hope that helps. Our coffee is getting cold, and see you in a bit. Oh, always forget, please subscribe. Thank you.